What's up guys, AJ here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the strategy that you need to get more listings in 2023. It's a fact that we're currently in a shifting market. Even last summer's buyers were making crazy offers. You'd have 20 offers on a listing, it'd go way over asking, and sure, sometimes that may be happening a little bit still, but the facts are there. We're in a shifting market. Interest rates are way up. Sellers still think they can get what they were getting before, which is causing them to list at prices that may not allow the home to sell because buyers are no longer willing to pay for it. We're more in a buyer's market right now. So what you can do to position yourself for the best year ever is going to be expired listings. Getting more listings, getting more skilled at getting the best listings at the best prices so you can have more sales in 2023. And what I'm going to do in this video is share some of my best strategies that I've previously posted on my YouTube channel that you will absolutely love. I thought it would be much easier for you to consume it all in one video, so I hope you enjoy. So we all know that expired listings are a great source of business. We know that you can make a lot of money from calling expireds, right? But the question is, which ones should you call? Should you just be calling all of the ones that are coming through your data provider? Well, the answer is no. If you don't already have a data provider set up, well, that's where you absolutely need to start, right? You need a data provider that's going to find the expireds for you because you don't really need to decide which ones you should call if you don't have the data, right? So I highly recommend Redx. If you want to get that set up, I have a link in the description to save some cash, and everybody likes saving cash, right? So go ahead and use that link in the description and you can get started with Redx. Another thing that I also want to address is calling withdrawns with your expireds. Withdrawns are very similar. Oftentimes a withdrawn listing becomes a withdrawn listing because the seller is really upset with their listing agent. They're firing their listing agent and looking for a new agent. So that's a big reason why withdrawns become withdrawns. Another reason that a property could be a withdrawn listing or a canceled listing is because they don't think the time's right to sell the house based on the market. It could be because they want to pull it off the market to do some updates. And when all this is going on, they might also be looking to hire a new agent to get the property sold. So I would be calling withdrawn listings with your expired listings. All right, so the first criteria that I want you to think of when calling expireds is the distance. Where are they located? I recommend once you get your Redx set up and you're ready to get started, that all the data that you're pulling in, all the expireds, all the withdrawns, even all the for sale by owners, I would recommend an hour radius from your house. Now you might be thinking, well, an hour from my house, I don't know that market, or you might be thinking, well, I just don't want to really drive that far, and I totally get it. But you need to start thinking of yourself as somebody who specializes in selling expired listings. That's a script and you can use it. So when you're calling, you're actually an agent who specializes in selling homes that didn't sell the first time they were on the market. Now, of course, you're not going to be an agent that only specializes in that. You can still be your local market expert, but you need to think in broader terms that you're going after expireds outside of your immediate market. And in terms of not wanting to drive that far, I get it. I didn't want to drive that far either. However, if I knew that I could take a great listing at a great price, and I knew with about 90% certainty that they would hire me by the time I got there, then I would drive that far to get that listing, because you really only needed to drive there once to list the property. Somebody else can put the sign up, or you can have the sign in your yard. Your professional photographer is going to be the one going to take the pictures. So you really only need to drive there once. You just need to make sure that you're following a strict pre-qualification script. That's extremely important, and I'll have a link in the description to my expired prospecting mini course that has a script for the pre-qualification process. What the pre-qualification process does is it determines if they're going to hire you when you're at the house and at what price. So the very first thing that you open up with is, Mr. Seller, when I come out tomorrow at 7 p.m., and if everything I say makes sense and you feel comfortable that I can get the home sold, are you going to be ready to list with me tomorrow at 7? If they say no, well, you say, well, just out of curiosity, what would it take for you to list with me tomorrow? You want to get out the reason why they might not want to list with you tomorrow. If it's because they need to renovate the kitchen, well, you don't want to drive an hour to wait a few months for them to do some type of renovation, right? So get that out. If it's an hour away and they're interviewing multiple agents, I'm either going to go first or last, never in between. So if you say, okay, great, am I the first one that you're interviewing with? They might say, well, yeah, you are the first one. I say, okay, great. Do you need to interview everybody? Or if what I say when I come out tomorrow makes sense, are you going to be ready to list with me? If they say, yeah, I want to interview everybody, say, okay, great. Well, I'd love to go last then. And could you just make me a promise that you won't hire anybody before I meet with you? Then you can actually reschedule the appointment. You want to know all the objections that might come up on the appointment before you get there so you can sign a contract. So after going through the entire pre-qualification process, you know 90% sure that you're going to get the listing. Well, of course you'll drive an hour to get, say, a $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 commission check, right? The other thing that's really cool about a pre-qualification script, you might be thinking, well, I don't want to ask all those questions before I come out. Maybe they'll cancel the appointment. The goal of the pre-qualification process is to get them to cancel if they're not a motivated seller, is for you to cancel if they're not a motivated seller. You just want to be working with people who are ready to sell now. You do not want to be wasting your time, especially if it's an hour away. So you want to really tighten up that criteria a little bit when you're doing your pre-qual on sellers that might be an hour away. The other cool thing is when you drive an hour out from where you might live. For me in Charlotte, I got to some areas that were a little more remote, a little more rural, and the competition there was so small or no competition at all. So I could actually call a listing that was an hour away. It might be in a more rural area. I'm the only agent calling. They're ready to list with me because they don't know who else to use because it's a small market. I come in, what I'm saying makes sense to them, and they're ready to list because they're excited that they're listing with a professional versus maybe just, the agent across town that didn't get the job done. So don't be afraid to go into markets that you might be unfamiliar with. There's some certain things that you can do to prepare yourself a little bit, like previewing other homes that might be listed for sale in the area right before your listing appointment, on the MLS, going through more listings, more solds than you might originally have if it was a market that you were more familiar with. We're real estate agents, we're professionals. We can look at any market in the nation and with a little bit of research, have a very good feel for what homes are selling for and what the market's like. So don't let that intimidate you. All right, so the second criteria I want you to follow is price point. So this is going to narrow the criteria down a little bit. I would not be calling expireds less than 100,000. Unless you're in a market where that's a little more average, then maybe you go down to say 75,000. You always want to be thinking, how can I increase my average sale price? And at the same time, you don't want the criteria for price to be so strict, you're eliminating a lot of potential listings. So I found in most markets, 100,000 minimum is a good place to start. If you're already pretty busy and you already have a lot of business coming in, then I would increase that to 150. I had mine at 150 and had a lot of success with that. And there's no reason why you cannot charge more on lower price listings. So for example, anything that was priced at 150 or below, I actually charged 7%. And as the listing agent, I would keep 4%. So that's what I did. So always be thinking, how can I raise my average commission? You don't always have to increase average sale price. You can raise what you charge and at the same time increase your service too. Not all that money should just go into your pocket. You should also be reinvesting back in your business, of course, and providing a higher caliber service. Not only are you going to serve your clients at a higher level, but you're also going to grow your business overall because you're doing a better job. All right, final stretch. The third criteria I want you to think about is how old is the expired? What's the age of that expired? Now, if you're just calling new expireds, you're missing out on a huge opportunity with the old expireds. And if you're brand new to expireds, I recommend starting with the old ones. The new ones are going to be highly competitive. So if you're new to it, start for say 30 days calling older expireds because there's going to be less competition and you'll be able to get more comfortable with it, learn your scripts better, and get some great results. But after those 30 days, don't be shy and start calling new expireds too. Old expireds are my favorite for a few reasons. Like I already mentioned, the competition is much less. If you're calling back, say 6 months ago, even a year, up to say even 5 years, but I found the sweet spot is really anywhere from say 6 months to maybe 3 years old. Nobody else is calling them. Occasionally, they'll say, oh, you're the second person that called me in the last couple weeks. But for the most part, you're gonna be the only person that's called them in a very long time. And they're getting ready to put the house back on the market. The idea is you're trying to generate nurturers. A nurturer is somebody who is going to be selling their house in the future, who has agreed that they will interview you, meaning they don't have another agent already locked in. They become a nurture for you. And what you're doing is you're creating this nurture farm. And this nurture farm, once you get it up to hundreds and thousands of nurtures, becomes your pipeline. And eventually you get to the point where you're really prospecting this warm database, this warm pipeline that you created, as opposed to doing so many cold calls. And you can generate so many sales every single year from, say, just 1,000 nurtures in your database. And you can get to 1,000 nurtures in your database in a matter of maybe 6 months to, say, 18 months. It doesn't have to take that long. So when you're ready to start calling the old expireds, I would just start anywhere from, say, 2 to 3 years back and work your way forward. When I'm calling expireds, I like to think in terms of lists. So you could have an old expired list and you could have the dates. You could actually name that list, say, January 1 to December 31st, 2019. You could have different lists, for example, say a 2018, a 2017, a 2019, so that way at least you know what year you're calling. And keep calling that list over and over and over. Don't think you called the list, you're done, the list is no good. As long as you're using a dialer, it goes pretty fast, right? And as long as you're getting, say, a 5 to 7% pickup rate, you're doing all right. So if you're still getting, say, 5 to 7 contacts per hour, I'm happy with that pickup rate. I'm happy with that contact rate. Once I drop down to, say, 4 contacts below, what I'm going to do with that list is I'm going to archive it. So if I call 2017, say, 5 to 10 times, now I'm only getting, say, 4 people to pick up per hour using a dialer. I'm going to archive that, and I'm just going to put that in my archived list. Whenever I run out of data, or maybe I hire somebody to start working for me, I'm going to go into that archived list and prospect it again. But for the most part, depending on what market you're in, depending on how many expireds there are, withdrawals, canceleds, you may never actually have to go to that archive list. It was actually pretty rare when I had to go back to my archive list. So just think of that in terms of lists, and know that once you start getting that lower contact rate, to start archiving some of the people. And just know you need to call it multiple times and be using a dialer. If you're hand dialing, you're going to be lucky to make 4 contacts per hour. And that's part of Redx. They have the Storm dialer. It's an excellent dialer. If you're going to use Redx, I recommend just using that entire package. Get the data, the for sale by owners, the expireds. You get the old expireds with that, and the dialer. I get this question a lot too. Should you be organizing your list by like geography, like different cities? And with that, I think just complicates the process. I would just organize the expireds by months, years, and keep it like that. When you start breaking it down into cities, it just takes more time, more energy, and complicates things. The more complicated your system is, the harder it is for you to follow it, right? So I always like to keep things simple. Whenever things start to get more complicated or feel complicated for you, just be thinking, how can I simplify my systems? How can I simplify my work process? Because as long as you keep something complicated, it's going to be hard to follow it, and you're not going to achieve the success that you want. I can promise you that. One of the most important things when it comes to calling expireds is efficiency. How many contacts can you make per hour? So I see a lot of newer agents, or really just agents newer to calling expireds. They want to start off by going to the MLS, finding the properties that expired, and looking up the phone numbers themselves. Guys, I tried this. It takes way too long. Let's just say, for example, there's 10 new expireds. It takes you an hour to find all that information, to find the names, to find the phone numbers, versus paying for a service. Now, I don't know about you, but as a real estate agent, you should have a goal to make at least $100 an hour. So if you're making $100 an hour, is it the best use of your time to be looking up the expireds yourself? The answer is no, because the data providers, the way you get the leads, they don't cost that much. So the best use of your time is getting like an expired service to get the data for you, so you're not wasting your precious time trying to find the data yourself. I can virtually guarantee you, if you're the one looking up the information every morning, you're not going to stick to it long term. Let's use that example of 10 expireds. So that morning, you wake up, you look for the data, you get 10 phone numbers for 10 expired listings. Well, some of those phone numbers are going to be bad, they're going to be out of service, it's going to be the wrong number. Whereas when you're using a data provider, you're going to get multiple numbers per listing, so you have a better chance of getting a hold of the actual property owner. It's really discouraging when you spend all that time looking up the information only to find that you can only get in touch with one of the 10 expireds that you just got the data on. And if you do this over and over and over, you're not going to get any results because you're not talking to enough people, and you're going to give up. When calling expired listings, or any prospecting for that matter, your goal should be contacting 8 to 10 people per hour. Now, a contact is a decision maker that owns the property. So for example, if you call and you maybe get their kids or maybe a housekeeper or something like that, that's not going to be a contact. It has to actually be an adult decision maker that answers the phone. Now, it could be a wrong number, but as long as you ask the person that picks up the phone that you got the wrong number for and say something like, hey, I'm so sorry I got the wrong number, just out of curiosity, do you know anyone looking to buy or sell a home? I would still count that as a contact. In order to hit this target of 8 to 10 contacts, you need two things: a great data provider and a dialer system. And you need to know going into this to have the proper mindset that a lot of the phone numbers you're going to be calling, regardless of the data provider you use, you're going to get a lot of bad numbers. I hear so many times agents complaining, all the data is bad, the data sucks. But they don't have the proper framework, the proper mindset going into it. They don't even understand the rules to the game. When you know the game you're playing, it's pretty simple. When you expect that you're going to get a lot of wrong numbers, well, then it's not a big deal, right? And that's why a dialer is so important, because you want to be able to go through the numbers fast, because if you are getting wrong numbers and you're talking to wrong numbers, it can get frustrating. You feel like you're not making progress. But with a dialer, when you're getting 8 to 10 good contacts per hour, you start to pick up a lot of momentum. I found even for a new agent, out of every 50 contacts you make, you should set an appointment. So if your goal is to make, say, 20 to 30 contacts per day, you should be setting an appointment every 2 days, minimum. I've always loved the idea of the gold rush, gold mining. I love the gold shows that are on TV. Think of it like this. You need to move a lot of dirt to find a little bit of gold. You need to go through a lot of numbers to set a few appointments. That's just the game. And now you know the game that you're playing. Let's dive in and get you started on the right foot with the right lead sources. Now, there's a lot of different companies out there. There's the Mojo Lead Store, there's RedX, there's Vulcan 7, there's Espresso Agent, and I'm sure there's countless others, but those would be the main big ones, also LandVoice. Vulcan 7 and RedX, I would say, are the two biggest players. Now, Vulcan 7 is going to be about twice the cost of RedX, and I would say Vulcan 7's data, from my experience, has been a little better. But at twice the cost, I think RedX offers the best value. Their system is super intuitive. They have a great dialer, the Storm dialer. So my recommendation would be to use RedX. On Facebook the other day, I seen a comment in one of the Facebook groups, where all the real estate agents like to chat and mastermind and brainstorm and oftentimes complain. I saw one agent post that all the data is just awful from all these companies and that it's like all a scam. Well, do you really think that a company like Vulcan 7 or RedX, who have been big players in this space for like 10 plus years, are a scam? If they were, they'd be out of business. But those agents who are complaining just don't understand the rules of the game. So again, it doesn't matter what service you go with. However, I do recommend RedX or Vulcan 7. And if you're interested in RedX, I have an affiliate link in the description. You'll save $149 off the startup fee. It'll be completely waived, so you can find that in the description of this video. With all that being said, I hope that it gives you the confidence to persevere when it might feel like this is a grind. And I'm telling you, calling expireds at first will feel like a grind. But one thing that one of my mentors, Brennan Burchard, always says, you need to honor the struggle. And it's no different with this. And eventually, the more nurtures you're developing through your prospecting, you just start to really love what you're doing because you know that the efforts you're putting in are actually getting your results. You start to connect the dots. At the beginning, it's just having faith. And you really need faith to be successful. If you go into this thinking, oh no, it's not going to work for me, well then it's probably not going to work for you. But if you go into it knowing that you have all the information you need, you have great mentors who have been where you want to go, then you can have faith knowing that if you put in the work, you'll succeed as well. One of my favorite things about a system like this is that you know that you have a great setup. You wake up, you go through your morning routine, you're ready to start working, you have a great role play session to warm up for your prospecting session, just like an athlete warms up before a game. Now it's 8 o'clock and you're ready to start calling. You log into your dialer system, all the contacts are ready to go for the day. All you need to do is dial in, hit start, and now the dialer starts going. I like to think of it like a roller coaster, and I love roller coasters. You get on, you strap in, and you're ready for the ride. And you're going up, and it's clicking, click, 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 and you get to the top, and you're waiting for that anticipation, and then it just drops, and you're just in for that ride. And you're really just like, loving it, and you submit to the process because you know you're not getting out until the ride ends. And that's kind of like a dialer system. As soon as you hit start, it just keeps dialing number after number after number. So let's just say you don't have a good conversation with somebody and they hang up on you. Well, then it just goes to the next one, super fast like that. So I found that mentally, that helps me to keep going. The first one is just having a strong mindset. Now the last four are going to be really like the tools and things, but the first one is just a strong mindset. What are you doing to keep your mindset strong? I'm out here exercising right now, getting an evening walk in, sweating. It's one of those things that just keeps my mindset strong. Whenever I'm kind of like in a funk, I know because I haven't been working out, I haven't been reading. So what are you reading on a daily basis? What are you listening to? And what are you doing to exercise? These are all things that contribute to a strong mindset. I put this first because it truly is the #1 most important thing when it comes to having success, calling expireds, or really having success in real estate in general. You're going to need a thick skin. You're going to need to really deal with rejection. When calling, when prospecting, you're gonna have people that are saying no, people that are hanging up on you. So it's crucial that you have a big why so you can deal with that rejection. One thing that I recommend is writing down why you're doing this. What are your goals? What are your income goals? What are your lifestyle goals? How will it change your life? You know, take 10-15 minutes and actually write down these things in descriptive words of how you're going to feel when you accomplish your goals. Put that on your wall next to your prospecting station. Read that before you start your prospecting calls. Create a vision board, a dream board. Put this up on your wall. Be looking at it when you're making calls. Because when you can connect the dots, when you can connect the calls that you're making to the goals that you want to achieve, this is when you start to develop that thick skin. This is when every no just gets you closer to a yes. And that's the mindset that you have. You have this winning strong mindset, and nothing can stop you. So the first thing is just having a strong mindset. All right, so now let's get into the tactical stuff. So the second thing that you're going to need are scripts. You need to know what to say when calling these prospects, right? A great script has a few important elements. It's going to help you get from point A to point B. Point A being the start of the conversation, point B being setting the appointment. It needs to have powerful language, and language that is natural, like natural conversation that you would have with your friend. So you need to have a great script. And luckily for you, in the description I have a waiting list for a mini training on expired listings that I'm putting together, and I'm going to give you all of my scripts for free. So go ahead and put your name and email in that waiting list, and I'll get that to you as soon as it comes out in the next couple weeks. So you need some good scripts. Once you have some great scripts, you need to practice them, you need to internalize them, you need to role play them with other people, and once you do this, they become like your own words. It's funny, I say everyone has a script, just not everyone's script is effective. We all use scripts in different areas of our life, different language that we use. Like if I say, how are you today? You say, I'm doing good, how are you? Or whatever you might respond. That's a script. So we have scripts when we're calling real estate prospects, even if we don't know that we do. And if you don't know you're using a script right now, it's because you're not using a good script. You're using your own, and it's not effective. Scripts are written in a way to help you accomplish your goals, which is setting the appointment. All right, so now I'm walking down to this really cool beach by my house, so hopefully the waves aren't too loud when I get down there. So the third thing you're going to need is a data provider. Now, a data provider is something like Redx. Now, Redx is a great system. I actually have a link in the description for you to save $149 from the startup fee. So if you're interested, click that link and get that savings. So I like Redx for a couple of reasons. A, the data is great, and B, it's pretty cheap, relatively speaking. I've used all of them. I've used Land Voice, I've used Espresso Agent, I've used Mojo Data, I've even used Vulcan 7. Now Vulcan 7 I would say is kind of really the best of the best, but it's also very expensive. So I think for the value overall, Redx is the place where you're going to want to start. Now what you're looking for when it comes to data is expired data, for sale by owner data, data so you can do just listed, just sold type calls. So there's different things that you want from the data provider. Just know this, no matter what provider you go with, You're going to get multiple numbers, typically speaking, and a lot of the numbers are going to be bad. A lot of the numbers are going to be oftentimes family members of the people you're calling, or it's going to be a house that sold and now you're talking to the new owners. So just remember that that's part of the process. Don't think that you're getting bad data. It's just that you need to sort through a lot of numbers to get the right person that you're trying to talk to, the seller of the house. And this brings me to the number 4 thing you're going to need, which is a dialer. Now the reason you need a dialer is because you got to sort through a lot of numbers. You just got to go through a lot of numbers to get to the right ones. So if you're hand dialing, you're going to be calling maybe 20 to 30 numbers per hour. With a dialer, you can call well over 100. Now talk about efficiency. We've all heard work hard versus work smart versus work hard. Well, how about you work hard and work smart, but don't just work hard when it comes to this. You gotta be working smart, you gotta be efficient. So a dialer is highly recommended. I've used Mojo too. I love Mojo Sales Dialer. It's a great dialer. If you're gonna be using Red-X though, I would just get the dialer. It's called Storm. It comes with the data. You can get it all from one company, so that's a great solution. But if you're using Mojo, or if you like Mojo, stick with that. Both great solutions. And Vulcan 7 also has a dialer. It's a single line dialer, and I always prefer personally just going with a 3-line dialer because you can call more people. All right, now it's getting pretty steep here, so let me make sure I don't fall. So the other cool thing about a dialer is you can leave pre-recorded voicemails. Now the cool thing about this is rather than having to leave the voicemail every single time, not only wasting that time, but also using that energy, when the voicemail picks up, you can automatically drop a message. And I do recommend dropping a message because you don't want to be a secret agent. So every time you call, they hear your voicemail, they know, even if it's the, say, 10th, 20th time that you've been calling, you've been following up over weeks, months, or in some cases even years. And they're gonna remember that, and they're gonna know you're the one that worked so hard to get their business. And it takes no extra effort when you have a dialer. Isn't this just beautiful out here, guys? The sounds, the waves. I wish you could smell the fresh salt air. This comes back to number 1, mindset. This, just being out here, being by the beach, for me just motivates me and keeps me in a good, positive mood, strong mindset. So I try to get out here at least once a day. Don't always make it if my day is super hectic with business and coaching calls and helping agents and all that kind of stuff. But when I can, I definitely like to get out here. All right, so let's head back up this extremely steep hill. It's all about getting that heart rate up, guys. All right, so the 5th one is having a strong lead follow-up process. Now, if you haven't heard this, now you heard. Fortune is in the follow-up. Guys, this could not be more true. So you need to have a plan of what you're going to do once you generate what I call a nurture. A nurture is somebody who's open to interviewing you as their agent in the future. Someone that has not listed their house again, and someone who does not have an agent they would use. Now let me just catch my breath. So I like to have a multi-pronged approach when it comes to lead follow-up. It consists of phone calls, emails, text messages, video messages, and cards, like handwritten thank you notes, things like that. I'll tell you, for the longest time, all I did was just call. And I had massive results. But as soon as I started mixing in video messages and cards that I was sending out with my picture on it, different cool things, I might do a video on this too, my results just took off, guys. All right, I had to get up that hill because I could not breathe while talking into the camera at the same time. The reason why a multi-prong approach is so important with lead follow-up is because most agents are just doing phone calls. So when you reach out for follow-up, you want that prospect to remember who you are. If they can put your face to a name, even better. That's why we use cards. That's why we use video messages. Sometimes you'll be following up with people for honestly years before they list with you. Some are right off the bat, but some take a while. So don't go overwhelmed, because everything that I'm talking about in this video is gonna have its own video in the 10-part series that I'm doing here on YouTube. And also in the mini training for expired prospecting that I'm giving away for free, we'll go into even more depth. Just one basic thing for follow-up that you can implement today and have great results is if somebody tells you to call them back, say in a month, call them back in 2 weeks. Whatever the time frame is, oh, almost fell there. Whatever the time is, cut that in half. So that's just a general rule of thumb. If someone says a year, and a year could be because they have tenants in the property that are on a 1-year lease or something like that, I'm gonna call them back every quarter minimum, because if you don't, they're not going to remember you a year out. So general rule of thumb, cut it in half. If it's over 6 months, I would probably, cut that up into like thirds. So the thing with prospecting is you need to look at it like building a relationship farm. You need to develop these relationships over time, and those will turn into listings and then turn into sales. So think of it like a funnel. Every conversation you have is the top of your funnel, and your goal is to take those people down through that funnel. And then at the bottom of a funnel, if you can picture it, like a funnel that you'd put oil in your car with, you have these closings dripping out the bottom. That's the general idea when it comes to prospecting. Build your relationship farm, that's your funnel, put in as many people in the top, take them through a lead follow-up process, and then you're getting commission checks dripping out the bottom of that funnel. I get this question all the time with lead follow-up. How much is too much? I'll tell you this, you're very likely to lose business if you don't follow up enough. And you're highly unlikely to lose business if you follow up too much. So take that for what it's worth, and just, for me, if I were you, what I would take from that is, you gotta follow up like crazy. You gotta follow up, and follow up some more. We live in a busy world, guys. People are distracted. Think of it, TV, the news, social media, kids, their schedules, work schedules. There's a lot of demands on people, and they're not thinking of you hardly ever. And if you call, they might miss you. If you text, they might miss it. If you send out a video message, they might miss it. But if you send a card, they might get that. So that's why we have this multi-pronged approach. I don't know about you guys, but I'm fired up. Maybe it's this fresh air, I don't know. But I'm telling you, if you take what I'm teaching, you will crush it with expireds. Number one, without a doubt, they are the fastest and cheapest way to a commission check. And even if you're not in the need of a commission check right now, maybe you're not a new agent, maybe you have a great business, they're the fastest and cheapest way to double your business and double your income. I would put for sale by owners also in this category, but I like expireds a little bit better when I'm looking at things that can increase your business the fastest and with the least cost. Now, things that would not be in that category are, say, paying for buyer leads, Zillow, Realtor.com, pay-per-click, sitting at open houses. If you're still at a bricks and mortar office and you're waiting for business to come through the door, they call it call duty, waiting for people to call in. That's been dead for a long time. I hope you're not still doing that. Networking, things where you're basically waiting for the business to come to you, those are going to be a more long-term strategy and oftentimes are a lot more expensive. I mean, Zillow leads, for example, Realtor.com leads, pay-per-click. I mean, we're talking hundreds and thousands of dollars, and it's extremely long buying cycles with those types of leads. Typically, if a lead comes in, you're going to be looking 90, 100, 365 days out, whereas if you call an expired today, and it just went off the market last week, they might be ready to put their house back on the market today, get it listed ASAP, and it could sell the first few days on the market, giving you a commission check in the next 3 days. Whereas an incoming buyer lead, they're usually just in the initial phases of buying. They still need to go look at houses, which can be a lengthy process. So working with sellers in general, especially expired listings, is just a faster way to get to a closing. Number two, it's a proven, repeatable system. We know it's a numbers game. When you make X amount of contacts, you're going to set X amount of appointments, and you're going to take X amount of listings, and X amount of listings is going to sell. I'll share a little story with you. When I first got into real estate about 8 years ago, I was asking every top producer in my office, hey, what's the path to success that you took? What's that proven blueprint that if I follow, I know that I'll be successful? And the general advice that I got for the most part was, work your sphere of influence. Well, for me, I just moved to North Carolina. I didn't have a sphere of influence. I actually didn't know anybody. Or they said, you just got to network, go to these different networking groups. Well, I didn't really want to go to networking groups because I'm not really into that type of social environment, and there still wasn't like, if you do this, X result will happen. So I was looking for this blueprint because when I was in college, I was with this company called Student Painters. And basically what I did is I taught college students how to run their own painting business, and we had that proven blueprint to teach those college students how to run their business. For example, if you passed out 500 flyers, you would get a lead. If you knocked on doors for an hour, you would get a lead. These are leads, people who actually want an estimate. If you put up 25 signs on a weekend, you would probably get at least one call. So that's kind of what I was looking for. I was like, well, if I go out and knock on doors for real estate, how many leads am I actually going to get? Well, there's numbers for that. We can track that, whereas if you just go to networking events, there's nothing really to track. There's no proven system that you can follow for networking that is proven to achieve X result. I hope that makes sense. So when I finally discovered this world of expired prospecting, I was like, man, this is what I've been looking for, because I figured out that if I say make 100 contacts, I'll set about 2 appointments. Out of those 2 appointments, I'll take 1 listing, and out of each listing that I take, I'll sell at the time about 70% of them. And my numbers could get better, and I could track that, and I have a numbers analyzer that I was following, and I could actually see how much money I was making per hour. That's the type of business that I like to run, because if I do this, I can expect X result. Sometimes when you're starting something new, it's hard to follow through with it when you don't know if the actions you're taking today are going to pay off in the future, right? We call that faith. It's easier to have faith when you know that there's people who have gone before you who did exactly what you are doing and it worked for them. And when you put in the work, there's a 0% failure rate. Well, that's the blueprint of expired prospecting that I'm going to share with you in this 10-part series. And the number 3 reason I think you should be calling expireds right now is because the market is changing. If you didn't know this, real estate runs on 10-year cycles. We're in about year 11 of a bull market cycle right now, meaning the market's been going up, up, up. And it's really time that the market starts to shift a little bit. You know, regardless of the coronavirus and all that going on right now, we were due for a correction. And when the market dips, more expireds come on the market because more and more homeowners can't get the price they want. They can't get the home sold. So when the home expires, they're looking for a great agent that can specialize in expired listings and can actually get the property sold. So right now, it's kind of really a perfect storm for agents who are willing to put in the work, practice their craft, and learn the expired game. This is the strong foundation for your business. If you're going through a recession, if you're going through uncertain times, don't you want to know that your business has a solid rock foundation upon which it's built? I don't know about you, but I do. And expireds is that for your real estate business. How cool is it when you know if you make 100 contacts, you'll set, depending on your numbers, 2 to 3, maybe 4 appointments, and you'll take at least 1 or 2 listings. And those 1 or 2 listings will say net you $7,000 in commissions. Like, how cool is it? I mean, at that point, it's like printing money almost. You know that X leads to Y equals Z. It's a mathematical equation. It's a numbers game. That's the expired game, and that's why I get so excited about it, because I like numbers games. It was so cool. I had a mentor one time. We were in Las Vegas. I was probably 22. I was there for a real estate investing seminar. We were at Circus. We weren't going out partying, doing all that. The mentor that was teaching the seminar invited some of us younger guys to go to Circus. So I've never been back to Circus since, but I remember there was like this arcade area. And in the middle of the arcade area, there was these bottles, and you threw rings on the bottles. So if the ring went on top of the bottle, you'd win a prize. And he just bought like 100 rings and just kept throwing them. And he kept buying more and more and more. And he ended up with all these prizes. And I followed his lead. And I remember winning an iPod Shuffle it was. And back then, iPods were just coming on the scene. So this was like awesome. And he said, it's not if, it's when. And we know that when you do the work with seller prospecting, it's not an if it's going to happen for you, it's when it happens for you, as long as you don't give up. So because I knew it would be so helpful to so many agents, I wanted to put together this 10-part series on expired listings. Now, if you follow through this entire series, you're going to have a really good idea of what it takes to be successful and what to do when calling expireds. So if you want to get all the latest updates on that, just hit the subscribe button and the alert bell, and you'll be notified every time a new video comes out. If you have questions about expireds, put them in the comments, because week by week I'm going to be creating the content, and I could use your questions to help craft the content, and that will better serve you. And another thing that I'm doing for the real estate agent community is I'm putting together a mini series. Now, if you click the link in the description and sign up for the waiting list, as soon as that mini series is available in a couple of weeks, you'll be the first one to get access to it. And guys, this is 100% free. So if you want access to that mini series on calling expired listings, go ahead and sign up on that waiting list in the description. I get so passionate about expired listings because really they completely changed my life. When I got into real estate, I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying everything under the sun. I had no clear direction. And my first year I only sold 6 houses, didn't make any money really. And what I learned though about halfway through that first year is I learned how to call expired listings, for sale by owners, all that type of seller prospecting. It was mostly expireds though, and by the end of that first year I had over 20 active listings. My second year, which was my first full year, I sold 36 houses, made around $150,000, and have never looked back since. I hope you enjoyed all these strategies. There's so many agents right now just scared because they don't know what the market's going to do. They don't know where interest rates are going. It was so easy before, right? Because you'd get a buyer and they were ready to go. They were excited to buy a house. Now they're a little more apprehensive because they're a little scared with the interest rates and, you know, what's the economy going to do. But with these tips, strategies, and tactics, you're now armed with the knowledge that you need to become one of the top listing agents in your market this year. As a new agent or experienced agent, this is a strategy that can serve you either way. Like the video, subscribe to it, really appreciate it, guys. See ya.